Hello everybody, my name is James, hope you're doing well and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about updates from the Mexican Grand Prix. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Formula 1 content. Also make sure to follow me on X at James's Pit Lane, I'll leave a link in the description, but let's jump straight into the video. So let's start with Lando Norris, and he was just on another level in Mexico. You know, he took pole position, he led off the line. Given the long run towards turn one, he was put under a bit of pressure from the Ferraris behind, as well as Max Verstappen, but Norris kept the lead and then he just drove off into the distance. I mean, he was so far ahead by the time of the checkered flag. I mean, in his pit stops, Norris really could have had a cup of tea. He was that far ahead. So not really a lot to say about his race. And speaking about winning in Mexico, Norris said, "I love it, what a race. I could just keep my eyes focused and forward and focus on what I was doing. A pretty straightforward race for me, which is just what I was after. A good start, a good launch, a good first lap, and I could go from there. I got a much better launch than the guys around. It's my first win in Mexico, and a beautiful one to get." Now, with Norris winning the race and Max Verstappen finishing in P3 and Oscar Piastri finishing in P5, Norris now takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship away from Piastri. Norris is ahead now by 1 point, and Verstappen is 36 points behind Norris. So it's all very close, and game on for these last four Grand Prix. Now, when you look at Verstappen's race, it could have been P2 for him. He started the race on the mediums, while others around him were on the softs. And in that first stint, it was a bit of a mess at the start. I'll get onto that in a bit. But eventually, Verstappen got some clear air and he did a really good job on those mediums. You know, he was able to just extend the stint, go long, go long, go long, while others around him stopped. And then when he eventually stopped for softs, he had a nice tyre advantage. And on top of that, drivers in front of him decided to do a two-stop, while Verstappen stayed on a one-stop. So that promoted him into the podium positions. And then he was chasing down Charles Leclerc. It was getting very, very close. You could see the gap coming down, and it got to the last two laps, and Verstappen was under a second. And it was pretty clear that Verstappen was going to have a go on Leclerc on the run down to turn one on the last lap. But it never happened, and that's because a virtual safety car was called. Basically, Carlos Sainz spun in the stadium area. Now, if he was beached at the side of the track, then I guess fair enough, you have to call a VSC, but that's not what happened. Sainz managed to pull his car into a marshal's area, so he wasn't really on the track. So really, in my opinion, they could have just had that area yellow flagged and not called the VSC. It really took away from us a good last lap of racing, because you also had Piastri lining up a move for fourth, but Piastri never got that chance. So it is what it is at the end of the day, but yeah, also a bit annoying as well. But speaking about his race, Verstappen said, "Everyone around me was on soft tyres and we were on medium, so it was a bit of a struggle. It was about surviving the first stint. Once we bolted on the softs, I think we were a little bit more competitive and happier. It was a difficult weekend for us, but to be fighting for P2 with everything that happened in the first few laps was a very strong result." So what happened at the start? Well, there were two things. The first was right at the start of the race on that one. Verstappen got a good launch and pulled to the outside to see what he could do around the outside. We've seen Verstappen swoop round the outside of turn one and make up some positions in Mexico in the past. It looked like he was trying to do the same thing, but it just didn't work. He ran out of room. There were too many cars around, and Verstappen ended up going off the track, and it looked very slippery on the grass, and I thought he was going to go into the barrier given the amount of oversteer he was having, but he kept it under control and rejoined the track. Then a few laps later, there was an incident with Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was in P3, Verstappen was in P4, and Verstappen wanted to put a move on Hamilton, so made a bit of a lunge into turn one, but Hamilton wasn't having any of it and fought back into turn two. Then Verstappen went off the track, and then they were side by side going into turn four. But then Hamilton locked up, went off the track, and gained a lot of time on Verstappen. Now, Hamilton was noted for two things following this incident. The first was not rejoining the track correctly and also leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Now, for not rejoining the track correctly, there was no further action, but he was given a 10-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. The stewards said in their verdict, car 44 locked brakes, left the track at turn 4 and used the grass area while rejoining in the direction of turn 5. As the driver was unable to follow the route prescribed by the race director along the yellow line due to an excess of speed, no breach of the race director's notes is deemed to have occurred. However, by leaving the track and cutting the corner, the driver gained a lasting advantage, overtaking car 1 and failing to give back the position thereafter. The standard penalty for leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage is therefore imposed. Now, I can understand why Hamilton has been penalised for that incident. The two drivers were side by side going into turn 4, but then Hamilton's left the track, cut the corner and gained quite an advantage over Verstappen, so I can see why the stewards have penalised Hamilton. Now, before I end the video, I just want to mention Oliver Bearman because he did such a good job in the race. I mean, through all the drama with Verstappen and Hamilton, everyone was just bunched up, and Bearman just picked his way through and ended up in a podium position. That is just unbelievable. Fair play to Bearman, and he was really holding off Verstappen very well. Verstappen on those medium tyres could not close up to Bearman on the softs, so Bearman did a really good job. I do think had he stayed on a one stop, he could have just got onto the podium, finished ahead of Verstappen, but he decided to do a two stop, and still he finished in P4 and did a very good job, and it's no surprise he got driver of the day. But that's going to be the video from me today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos, and until the next one, take care. Bye.